This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Hey guys, so before we jump into today's episode, just a quick note of something that we wanted to bring up from a previous episode. We did record an episode about, I feel like I'm saying the word episode 100 times, but we did
say it one more time.
We did record an episode about our obsession with the new series, High School Musical, the series. And we wanted to quickly bring up that someone that we went to high school with,
the old Sun Valley,
Jordan Powers. Wrote 2 songs from that series. She wrote Out of the Old and Wondering. Everyone heard how much we love Wondering.
It's the best.
So we just wanted to give Jordan a quick shout out and
go listen to her.
Go check her out, because if you have heard those songs, you'll see how amazing they are. And she has a bunch of other work. So
I literally still listen to a song she wrote in high school and performed at our senior variety show in 2009. It's a jam. It's a bop.
It is.
So say Only If You're Into Me. Only If You're Into Me. Maybe, yeah, I think it's just Only If You're Into Me.
Kathleen's fan.
I'm obsessed. Jordan, call me.
And also, on the lines of High School Musical, the series, I promise that eventually I will stop talking about this show.
I can't make that promise.
But we hyped up the I Love You scene because it's fucking amazing. And then Kathleen sent me a meme from Instagram that said, still not over the fact that Ricky blurted out that he loved Nene, and Nene's reaction was literally Olivia's reaction because she didn't know about the script change. If you're listening to this right now and you have no idea what we're talking about, that means you didn't listen to the High School Musical episode, and you should go listen to that now before listening to this episode.
It's a great show. We love it.
We love it. Thanks, guys. What's up, everybody? This is Julie and Kathleen with another episode of my favorite episode of Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Happy. Oh, I was like, it's not Tuesday.
It's Sunday. Plot twist. Today we have Brian on.
Hey, welcome. Thank you for having me.
And this is a very exciting time for Brian.
It's his big day.
It's the 3rd time he's on, but the first time he got to pick about what we're talking about.
This is big for me. I do want to start off by congratulating Kathleen. I sent in several auditions to be the co-host of the show, but it looks like the best man won out.
I am the best man.
Sorry, you won. I really thought my last audition tape was gonna hit, but It didn't, unfortunately. I do happen to have my last audition tape available.
Please play it.
Okay, Matt, hit it. Hey, longtime listener, several-time auditioner. I think I would be the perfect host for this podcast because I'm a great singer. Dear Silent Sergeant Crupsy, you gotta understand. A hilarious joke teller. Why are there so many drag queens but no drag princesses? And a great interviewer. Fascinating. You can have this and so much more. Put me on your podcast today.
I'm actually so pissed that Matt didn't.
Honestly, I have no idea where they would ever choose me.
Let's play Kathleen.
100%.
Let's play Kathleen's audition tape.
You cannot put me. I didn't even have to audition.
No.
That's
Just
true.
everyone was like, the best episode that you've had, like the funniest one is you and Kathleen. And I was like, that's because we just like feed off of each other.
Wow, that was
It
a
works.
fucking awesome audition tape, though. I would love to hear the first two. We can pull those from the archives at some point. Then.
Okay, yeah, I can play them later on. I'll play it at the end.
We actually were talking about how we have to redo our intro, so maybe we can just make that our intro instead. I think that works. So before we go ahead and get into the episode that we're talking about, and you know the whole nine here, Matt had brought up in the past for people that listen that if we ever get a review, that person will be special enough for us to read their review. So I'm going to do that on this episode because we finally got one written review. So it was from January 1st, 2020. And the subject line is, show's great, but let Brian pick S ... I'm assuming it's supposed to be something. Not sure. It looks like this is a Brian fan, so I figured it was fitting to read it on this episode. The review gave us 5 stars, and the guy's name is Chief Kabosh. I'm assuming he wants to remain anonymous. And
There's a lot of ranks to get to chief, so don't take this lightly.
So thank you for the 5-star review. And he wrote, "I long-time listener, first-time reviewer." Matt, would you get it together? "This show is so entertaining and charming. Julie cracks me up, and she has great guests every week. I'm a fan of producer Matt, but Brian is a killer every time he's on. He is both kooky and hilarious. I just wish he could pick something to watch. Both times he was on, producer Matt picked for him. Let Brian pick once, would ya?"
A lot of the same verbiage as the audition tape, I'd just like to say.
Yeah, weird.
So I don't think Brian wrote that, but Brian, you have a fan that you might want to, you know.
I think that might be your soulmate.
Yeah, I don't know if you've gotten my invitations to my wedding or my save the dates, but my name is Mr. I've never made it to chief, so I don't know why you would even think that's me. I'm not even a doctor. But whoever that is, I appreciate it. It's good to know someone cares.
Yeah, and just an FYI, that was obviously before Kathleen was a co-host, so that's why she's not mentioned in there, but I'm sure the chief thought that Kathleen's amazing as well.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, so getting into the episode. So today we're going to be talking about Curb Your Enthusiasm, Season 4, Episode 6, The Carpool Lane.
Yes.
I could have guessed before Brian picked an episode that he would have picked from the show because Brian is obsessed with Curb Your Enthusiasm.
This show's been on for a long time.
Yeah.
Very, very long time.
Was there a hiatus at some point for years?
Not too long. I think maybe like a 2 or 3 year hiatus for season 9 to come out, I believe. Whatever the previous season was. I think we're on season 10, so season 9 took a few years to come out.
Gotcha. And why don't you give everyone who has not seen the show a brief summary of what the show's about?
So the show follows Larry David, the creator of Seinfeld, and it's just about his life and situations that he gets in. Obviously, it's very fictitious, and it's I like it more than Seinfeld because Seinfeld is such a sitcom, and the main character, who's Jerry Seinfeld, may be a good comedian, but does not know how to act. So everything is very like over the top with him, and it feels like you're watching a sitcom. As far as Curb Your Enthusiasm, everything seems so real, and that's kind of why I love the show because, you know, growing up, I was always into television, you know, and I wanted to be all these awesome people on television. Friends, I'd be like, "Ooh, I'm Joey Tribbiani." Parks and Rec, I wanted to be Chris Pratt, and then it just was like, "Oh fuck, I'm Larry David," like through and through. Like that's just who I am as a person.
And
I want to be.
And if you're anyone from Friends, you're Chandler, okay? You are not Joey.
I know. I wanted to be Joey. But I'm a crotchety old Larry David. That's just who I am.
It's funny. I've never seen Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I mean, I knew who Larry David was, but he is Jerry. Like, they sound so similar. They talk exactly the same.
Yeah.
They do, and actually, he in the show Seinfeld, he is George Costanza is supposed to be him.
Oh,
really?
So
George Costanza is based on Larry David.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that actually does
After
make a
watching
lot of
Curb,
sense.
yeah. I don't know much about this, but I would like to consider myself somewhat of a subject matter expert on Cassie David and the Pete Davidson thing. So if you need any talking points on that, I can handle that.
I will keep you in my Rolodex for my day-to-days.
You're just
It's
gonna get
Larry's daughter?
You're gonna get random texts from Brian.
Be like, well, what do you think? I just have lots of opinions.
Yeah.
Help, help, someone stole my purse. Does anyone have any fun facts about Pete Davidson? I got a number you can call.
That's exactly why I said this. That's exactly why. So it's good.
I know. Don't you hate the way Brian makes you feel sometimes?
No, I love it.
I hate him. I hate him.
It's good.
All right. So why don't you talk about why this is your favorite episode? Because like you said, there's 10 seasons. So probably you had a lot to choose from. Why did you pick this specific episode?
I didn't know how you would feel about the show, right? And it's so hard to genuinely pick a favorite episode from the show. But I picked it for two reasons. One is like, even if you don't like the vibe or the way the jokes are delivered, the whole premise of this episode, I think alone is just very funny, right? Everything that happens is very funny. And then the second reason is, aside from my love of comedy and Curb Your Enthusiasm, I also love true crime. And this episode exonerated a man for murder. It's there's actually a documentary you can watch on Netflix. It's about 45 minutes. It's called Long Shot. And what had happened was this guy got charged with the murder of some woman, and his alibi that he had that they couldn't fully prove was that he was at a Dodgers game.
Oh my God.
And this is before you had phones. And they went through all of the footage on the game, and they couldn't find it. And then someone was like, well, there was a television crew here filming Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Larry David's in the documentary, and a clip that the camera crew picked up actually was what kept this man from going to prison.
That is so amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What year was this episode? Like 2003, 2004? Something like that?
2004. It was 2004.
Damn.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that's super
Love
cool.
that.
You can actually tell that it's like the filming wise that it was older. Like this episode was
actually
older.
gonna ask if that's something that's in every episode, because there'd be random shots where the quality is just completely different than, I don't even know how to explain it, but like there'd be shots of Larry from the side. It would be like shooting him and it looked crystal clear, and then it would take a shot from the side and it looked like the coloring was off. I didn't know if that was like an artistic choice or because it was older, but it's HBO, so I was like, I don't know. I feel like it's an artistic choice if it just completely changes.
Yeah, I think it's just quality. I don't know how much the budget was for this show originally, because the new season that just came out is absolutely immaculate as far as visually. The first season looks like something that I could have shot. The sound isn't great. There's no color grading done to it whatsoever. It's virtually like raw footage. So I don't think there was a big budget originally.
I don't think the show needs much of a budget. It's so so simplistic, but it's dope. I like it.
Yeah, my only downside to this episode is Jeff Garland, who's his manager. His wife's not in it, and she's like one of the funniest characters.
That was a question of mine. I didn't want to look anything up. So he's his manager in the show. That like Okay. Understood.
Yeah, so he's his manager and like best friend. Funkhauser is his best friend, and it's very similar to me and my best friend. Is like he's one of his best friends, but they despise you. It's so clear that they despise each other.
Shout out
and
to
that's
Nick.
Like mostly me and my friend Nick is like we just everything each other does we can't stand, but we genuinely love each other because of how mean we are to each other.
They both have tattoos of trash cans on them with their names under it.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
just throwing that out there, just so everyone can get an understanding of their relationship.
Yep, because that's what we used to call each other, was trash. In fact, Nick isn't too tech savvy, so he didn't get an Instagram until about 3 years ago. And his first post, which you can find easily because he's got 10 posts, is when we lived together, and it says, "Just hanging out with my main man, B. Kelly," and it was a picture of him smoking a cigarette next to a trash can. So.
Love it. So obviously there's going to be people who haven't seen this episode. So before we dive into it and go over what me and Kathleen have written down and some stuff that you want to talk about, why don't you give a quick summary of what this specific episode's about?
So this episode is about Larry. Realistically, it's all of the episodes are several stories in one, but the two main stories are Larry, three, I guess, because they all tie in together. Larry needs to get out of jury duty, which is a very small storyline, but it's a big part of the story. So he pretends to be racist to get out of jury duty. He tries to get his dad some weed to help with his glaucoma. And then the main story is he wants to get to the Dodgers game, but everything keeps going wrong. He doesn't have tickets, then he gets shitty tickets, and then he's stuck in in traffic, and the only option is the carpool lane. So as he's ready to give up, a prostitute offers some services as prostitutes tend to offer, and he gets the bright idea to pick up this prostitute so he can ride in the carpool lane, which to me is just such a funny thing, and it's something that I wouldn't put past myself to do if I was in a jam.
Yeah. It's actually hilarious because I could totally see you doing that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I wrote down was, and I'm gonna have Matt play the clip, is when him and his friend are going back and forth in the beginning about how they're going to get the baseball tickets from their friend whose dad died, and how they're going to bring it up without it being obvious that they want the tickets. So Matt, can you play the clip?
His father just died. He's probably not even going.
Sure, he's not going to go. He hasn't even gone back to work yet.
So he's not going to go to the game?
He's not going to go to the game.
So what's going to happen to those tickets? They're going to go to waste.
It is weird to ask a guy, his father just died, can we use your tickets?
It is kind of tacky to do that.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. It might be a way to...
We just call him up and say, hey. Yeah.
Marty, I know you're still in mourning.
Right. I'm sure you're still
Marty,
in
I know you're still in mourning, but is there any...
I feel your grief, but are you going to use those tickets?
Marty, just so your tickets don't go to waste.
There's no good way to go about it. None.
Still. It's just hilarious.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It is good. That felt like a bit between friends, like two people just being like, how can we go about this?
Yeah. And like, again, it's just a lot of it really did remind me of you, Brian, and like the way you handle situations and how like you think that you're doing a good job of like being secretive, but really you're just so obvious and awkward about how you're handling it.
How much of this show do you think is improvised?
It's actually all improvised.
Oh, wow.
So they have the
100%
line, they have the storylines and like the plots that they have to follow, but then they're like the two scenes that I was like, this has to be improvised is one when he actually is at the diner talking to the guy and just walking away and then coming back, which is fucking hysterical. And then two, the scene where he's buying the weed with Hurley from Lost and they're just like doing that thing where he's like, no, just.
I know.
Yeah.
That was another thing I wrote
Such a
down
funny
when the drug dealer's like, all right, so start walking. And Larry's like,
which
does
way?
it matter what way? And then he walks one way and he's like, I actually have to go this way.
Yeah. It's so funny. So yeah, it's all improvised. And to give you an example, actually the first episode where I realized I was Larry David, I forgot to mention this, was something actually happened to me. And then before I saw the episode, and then I saw an episode and it was literally a reenactment of my life, was my friend. I dropped my friend off. We went out to dinner and then I dropped him off at his new house. And he was like, do you want to come in and see the house? And I said, no, I'm all right. And he looked at me weird, like he was really excited. And I didn't think anything of it. But then I saw an episode where Jeff's wife offers Larry a tour of the house and he goes, no, I get it. And she flips out and curses him out and calls him a scumbag and all this. So that's like a 5-minute scene and that's the ending. And what happens is Larry David gets on set and says, okay, Larry's dropping Jeff off. You guys are going to exchange some words, have a conversation. You're going to ask him to view your house. He's going to decline. You're going to flip out. And that's it. That's all the script. Like there's no script.
Sure. It's
just a setup. And then it's a full-on improvised show. But the buying the lead scene is probably my favorite. My favorite part. Just because of the 200 for swag. Is that a fair price?
And then he's like, before he's giving him the money, he's like, let me put my hand on it. And he's
Let me put my hand on it. It's like your hand is on it.
Yeah. Actually, I honestly thought you were gonna tell the story, and I'm gonna see if you. I'm gonna put you on the spot and see if you'll give us permission to post it on the Instagram page of when your friend's Ring doorbell recorded you trying to come. He was like invited to his friend's house and he knocked on the door and nobody answered. So it's just like a video of him like walking back and forth and like texting on his phone, but he would not walk inside. And it's like 30 minutes long and it's like you cringe because of how awkward he is. Like it's his friend and he will not walk inside.
Have you been to that house before, Brian?
Several times. Several times.
Another thing that I noticed with this show, and I don't even know if people will really get this reference, but his dad looks just like the old man that plays chess with himself in the beginning of A Bug's Life. He looks just as... Is that guy old man in the beginning of every Pixar movie, or is it just The Bug's Life? Yeah.
That is
Just The
so
Bug's Life.
specific.
Well,
That's
we loved that when we were kids. We loved that. And his dad is, I think, like they inspired
The dad was such a good character in this episode.
Yeah.
Oh, when they're just smoking at the end, that is
oh
so
my
fun.
God, it is so funny when she's like, now say this chronic is the shiznit.
And he says it sounds Yiddish.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's hilarious.
His dad, there's so many episodes I wish I could have picked with his dad alone. The one episode that just lost to this because of the fun fact about the trial is Survivor, where his dad's friend is the survivor of the Holocaust, and he invites him over for this dinner because his rabbi's friend is also a survivor, but then his rabbi friend gets there and he's from the show Survivor. And then they get into a fight at dinner about who went through worse trials and tribulations, the guy in the Holocaust or the guy who survived.
Flashing back to when he's in court trying to get out of jury duty, it was so stupid, but it made me laugh when he was asked if he was ever involved in a serious crime, and he said, "My cousin once stole an almond joy from me."
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "I wouldn't classify that as a serious crime."
I loved that they came full circle with that, and that at the end, the judge that he said the racist shit to was the judge at the end. I love a good full circle moment.
I know. I was gonna type that quote, and then I was like, "Nope, gonna go with the almond joy one."
Yeah. It's so cringeworthy. He could have said something so much better than, like, not better funny wise, but like less dark or like whatever. I wonder how many, like, I'm sure there's a bunch of takes of that scene, like just multiple things he's saying, like ripping just like funny lines, like outtakes.
Yeah, it's probably really good. One of my favorite lines in the episode, like a nice little punchline, is when he's talking to the prostitute about how many blowjobs she can do in an hour, and she goes, "I have a red snapper that'll talk to you," and he goes, "You know what it's saying? I'm charging way too much."
She was crazy.
Yeah, she was hilarious. I laughed so hard when they walk when they're like walking to the seats, and she's like, "I know the seats aren't way the fuck up here."
I love that, like, she's getting mad at him for things, and he's like, no, it's fine. Like, he's trying to, like, appease this prostitute.
Everything is fine. And we're when they're in the car, and they decide that she's going to go in the game, and he's like, "Well, would you pull your shirt up?"
Look presentable.
Yeah. Another thing that I wrote down that I thought was hilarious, but was so fucked up. So I guess for the people that didn't watch this episode, one of... like, there's so many different storylines in this, but him trying to go to the baseball game with his friend says that he doesn't have a spare ticket. He's going with someone else, and you find out that the seat next to him is empty because his dad passed away, and his spirit is basically there, like it's a memorial, and that's what he's sitting next to. So then flash forward to after the game, the guy's car is broken down, and he's asking Larry for help, and Larry goes, "Why don't you ask your father to jumpstart your car?"
That's right, my favorite line.
I was like, I wrote in my notes like, "Ha ha ha, so fucked up," but it was so funny.
I think that he just improved from Seinfeld, because Seinfeld, there's like two storylines that come full circle, but in this, it's like every single thing that happens has to do with the wrap up. Like every
Right.
single scenario that seems at face value like it's nothing comes full circle.
So,
And
no, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, I have nothing. I end my sentences with "and."
Okay.
It's just a thing
He said, no,
The best
I
of
have
us do.
nothing.
What I was gonna ask is the guy whose father died, like, I'm assuming he's a recurring character. Like, they're acting like he's from the golf club that Larry got kicked out of or something.
Yeah, so that was the only thing that most of the show you can watch at any time and it makes sense, but there is consistent storyline. So what had happened was his dad died. They got kicked out of a golf club for Larry killing a goose that was trying to attack him. And then his dad was getting buried with Larry's club. So Larry stole it from the coffin. And it was like a whole thing. That's why he like apologized about the wood and the dad's funeral. Like him and his friend are on really like a tense thing because he desecrated his father's grave virtually, like his father's funeral. But yeah, so there's like a few things that reoccur. Like each season has a whole storyline, but it's not super relevant, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. I actually texted Matt and Kathleen this, and Kathleen had no idea what I was talking about, but I noticed that Cool Day La was mentioned in this episode, and I wasn't sure if you picked this episode as a way to promote your podcast or if this is something that comes up often in the show.
So weirdly enough, I forgot that that's in there. It doesn't come up often in the show, but it is a callback to a different episode.
Okay.
So Cool Day La is from an episode from season 1 or 2. But it's just it's a cool, it's just something they bring up. Like he just has like these awkward conversations.
All right, so we already talked about how like the banter between the prostitute and his dad is like hilarious. But the other part that I thought was hilarious is when like the camera keeps going to Larry and you can tell he's just like stoned out of his mind, and he gets up and walks out of the room and goes into the bathroom, and then he's just having a full on conversation with himself.
The bits of him talking in the mirror are hysterical.
They are so funny.
He's like, I don't even remember an exact line, but he's like, "You're not gonna do that. You know you're not gonna do that."
Yeah, like it was like, "What should I do?" And it was like, "You got to change your diet. We've talked about this."
Yeah.
I know Kathleen was talking about like a previous scene of Rips, but I would love to see the hour of just all the raw takes of that, because I'm sure it was great.
Sometimes I think that that's like the best, like watching like bloopers of stuff is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember me and Brian like watched like an hour, it probably wasn't an hour long, but it was like Friends for like 45 minutes on YouTube of just bloopers, and it's just so much funnier sometimes than like watching the actual show of like them cracking and like laughing at themselves.
Watching people break faces.
Oh my god,
hysterical.
it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. I'm not going to quote any of it because I can't do it justice, but just look at Chris Pratt's outtakes on Parks and Rec. It's like a 10-minute video, and it is so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is
I've
one of
seen
the
that.
funniest things.
I did love this show though.
Yeah,
The show's
I
great.
actually was surprised at how much I enjoyed this because I have mentioned that I'm not really big into Seinfeld, but I thought it was maybe because it's like completely like unscripted. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it so much. Like I thought it was hilarious. I really enjoyed watching this.
Yeah, I agree with you though, Brian. I mean, these felt like two completely different shows.
Yep.
One so sitcom-y and the other. I love Seinfeld though. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is like my biggest girl crush. I love her. She's the
She
greatest.
appears a lot in this show.
As herself or
As herself.
because
As herself.
I checked the IMDb. It looks like everyone keeps their first name besides Larry keeps first and last, but everyone else has kind of like a different same first name, different last name.
Yeah, like some people play themselves. Richard Lewis plays himself, and everyone from Seinfeld plays himself. Ted Danson, and each episode's like 30 minutes. It's such a great show to like. I even started to get Jade to watch it because it's like while we're eating dinner, not paying attention, watch one episode and then put on a different show. It's good. It could be your next Office. I'm confident you'll like it.
This is like going back to the actual episode, but I did mean to say this. He racked up so much money with that prostitute. Like he was over $1,000. Like he was at $1,000 right at the start. Yeah. And then he just kept buying her shit and getting it. Like the Chronic. I was like,
oh my god.
Honestly, I don't know anything about anything. I don't even know what Chronic is, but I was scared. I was like,
I'm scared.
Is Chronic sounds so dangerous.
Isn't it just a type of weed?
It's a type of weed.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
Have
like
you
something.
ever bought swag before? Yeah.
Swag.
Larry David appeared on Hannah Montana one time.
Did he?
Just a fun fact, yeah. He like I forget. I'm not even lying when I say I forget the episode.
Yeah.
But they're in like a restaurant and like Hannah Montana gets a table and then he tries to. And it's like him and his daughters.
Yeah.
And she's like, and he's like, I'm sorry, sir, it's booked. And she's like, but he's Larry David, the creator of Seinfeld. And he's like, nope, sorry. And that's like it. Like, it's like,
I think Larry does have a little line after being like, I should have done something else.
Yeah. And then like, that's it. But that's like the first time I ever heard of him.
Does anybody work here?
Wow, when you apologize, you don't fool around. This is the coolest restaurant in town. Well, it's the least I could do after the way I acted.
What's the deal? I've been waiting an hour for a table here.
Well, when I have a table, I'll tell you.
Really? You know what? I completely forgot. It's my little girl's birthday. Oh, can you help us out? Come on.
No, it isn't.
Oh. You know what? I got the wrong girl. It's her birthday. How did I screw that up?
Mine was 2 months ago.
You want to eat?
I'm sorry, but this is what happens when Daddy calls at the last minute. Hannah!
Believe. I am so sorry I called at the last minute. Mwah, mwah.
Don't give it a second thought. Table for Miss Montana.
Are you kidding?
It's Hannah Montana.
But he's Larry David. He created Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Sorry.
Face it, Dad, she's bigger than you. Bet Uncle Jerry could get us in.
Uncle Jerry? Why couldn't you say it was your birthday? Come on.
Do you know, I read somewhere that, like, so Larry plays Bernie Sanders on SNL. He's like the recurring Bernie on SNL. And apparently they're like third cousins. They didn't even know it. They did like one of those like 23andMe or something weird. And they're literally third cousins. Because one time I was watching and was like hungover and wasn't really paying attention, was like, is that actually Bernie Sanders? I can't tell if that's Larry David or Bernie Sanders.
I know. I was just thinking when you said that, I'm like, wow, that's uncanny. They look exactly
Yeah,
alike.
I mean, he does a fantastic Bernie on SNL, but I was like, I can't tell if that's actually Bernie or if that's Larry. I'm assuming it's Larry, but
she smokes chronic that day.
Yeah, it's a little chronic in SNL on a Sunday morning.
He's been campaigning for everyone not to vote for Bernie Sanders for the sheer fact that he doesn't want to have to keep coming on Saturday Night Live.
So going back to the mention of Cool de La before we wrap it up, as I mentioned, Brian does have a podcast called Cool de La. So Brian, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about the show and how they can listen?
So the show is me and a friend I grew up with, Khalil. We're on hiatus right now, but there's plenty of episodes to listen to, and we'll be back soon. And it's two reasons. A, we wanted an excuse to talk to each other more often because we live 1,000 miles away. And B, we're so torn. I mean, and it's a very goofy podcast, so it's not like talk down to you or preachy or anything, but we're so very torn in the climate of millennials that we just tried to put things into perspective for people, because we feel like on both sides there's like there's either people that aren't getting enough rights that deserve rights, and on the other aspect it's like people complaining just to complain and getting overly offensive and you know, us just trying to draw the line between like hate and comedy and not letting them mesh and getting offended by everything. And we do like Today in History. We'll do a bunch of riffs. We'll read the news and mock it. Our one thing is we refuse to get political. You'll find nothing political on our podcast because it's such a touchy subject. It's just about individuals and how they should look and see things, and how they should be more open-minded and stop taking life so seriously. And that's really the gist of the podcast.
Wow, that is not what I was expecting that podcast to be about. That sounds awesome.
No, it's I've listened to it because, you know, we have to support each other.
Sure.
And it's actually hilarious. So I highly recommend listening to it. People can listen to it on iTunes and Spotify, correct?
iTunes and Spotify.
So everybody check it out.
And so we're going to wrap this up, but I just want to say, Brian, for the 2020 re-auditions, I wish you luck for this podcast. I really think you have a good shot.
Yeah, no, listen, I think you're doing a great job, but you will slip, and when you slip, I will be there.
All right, I'll take that competition on. Well, thanks, Brian. This was another episode of Your Favorite Episode.
Nope.
My favorite episode is our favorite.
Here.
Our favorite episode might be.
Yeah, wait, hold on, Brian. This is your 2020
Yeah,
audition.
I'm
Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
Thank you all for listening. This has been an episode of my favorite episode of, and tune in next week to hear me and my co-host, Julie.
Bravo.
I don't even know what the name of this podcast is.
We're debating on changing it to Brian's favorite episode of, featuring co-host Julie. I'm climbing right to the top. I'm coming for you, Chief
Brian.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and tune in next week.
Saturday, February 29th. Throw on your bloody black tie best and join Dark Hills Gaming for a night of dancing, drinking, and horror. All in the name of charity. Proceeds from the Bloody Valentine Ball will go to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. The ball will be a gore-filled gala that will immerse you in a horror-themed high school dance, complete with prom pictures, interactive events, and a horror memorabilia auction. 2 lucky guests will be voted Horror King and Queen, complete with full Carrie treatment. There will be a bloody bar, so bring cash and your ID. This is a 21+ only event. Buy your ticket now at darkhillsgaming.com and help us support the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.